Howdy, folks. Welcome back or welcome aboard. You are listening to the Saint Cities version, the Saint Cities Show by Doc Owen Show. We are glad to have you. If you're a first-time visitor, welcome aboard. If you're coming back to see us again or you've been listening to the podcast or previous broadcasts, we are really glad that you are. Spread the word. Spread the word. This is right now we're calling it an initiative, and our target is to make it a movement, which is a large initiative, ongoing. We are all over the social media. We are out there as Doc Owen Show, DOCOWENSHOW, on both Facebook, Twitter, and we have a blog, docowenshow.com. We also have a Facebook page called Saint Cities, SAINTCITIES, Saint Cities plural. So look us up on Facebook, like us, leave us a comment, give us some feedback, get involved, tell us, what we can do to help make your hometown a Saint City. We also have a Doc Owen Show app on both iPhone and Android. If you'll just go out to the appropriate store, it's free. Download it. That is by far the best way to listen to the show, get caught up. All of our archived shows are out there, so go back a little ways and catch up if you need to. Joined in the studio tonight by Miss Ima Surefire. Miss Surefire, how are you?
Pretty good. How y'all doing, folks?
We always start the show in a very... We've got three different shows. We've got a Saint City show by Doc Owen. We've got Campus Connection by Doc Owen Show, and that's with a K, Campus K Connection. That's focused, as it sounds, on primarily high school and college campuses, but activities around young people, to put it very broadly. That's our outreach to that specific group. And then we've got just the standard Doc Owen Show, which is where we started, and we'll call that one Discussions of Current Events, generally driven by political activity. So, but we try to start each show in a very traditional manner, and Saint Cities is absolutely no different. So Ima will give us an inspirational quote, and then that will be followed immediately by our current, let's call it, theme song from some friends of ours we play the entire song because we think it's that important. It's a rock and roll group, a patriotic rock and roll group by the name of Madison Rising, and primarily our good friend, the lead singer, David Bray, B-R-A-Y, Bray. Uh-huh. Dave Bray, USA is where you can find him on Facebook. So, Ima, do your quote, and then we'll just dive right into some jams. All right. Go for it.
Tonight's quote, as usual for Saint Cities, comes from PocketFuel.com. That's P as in Paul, K-T, Fuel.com. And tonight's quote comes from the first book of John, chapter 2, verse 28. And now, little children, abide in him, that when he appears, we may have confidence and not be ashamed before him at his coming. Ideas and visions sprout up and have a lifespan within us. And then some of these things die, giving way for new life to grow. We live out our days looking for meaning, searching for truth, but never really finding it until we become aware of who we really are. This physical world and all that pertains to it sometimes causes us to forget where we really came from.
Aha. Mm-hmm. Best for the last sentence.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Off and I'm rolling out of bed. I turn the TV on to wake up and clear my head. I catch the news in the stirring of the pot, talks of inequality and what people need for getting what they got. But in these times of opposition, the prejudice runs deep. Dividing us by heritage is all they ever preach. They tell us that they really care. To them it's just a game. 'Cause we were all Americans before the hyphens came. People cared about who you were and less about your name. 'Cause we were all Americans before the hyphens came. Somewhere down along the line, someone had a great idea. Divide us up by heritage and profit from the fear. But growing up a while back, before the racial trends, whether immigrant, white or black, we just called each other friends. And if we spoke an extra language, it was just another way to pledge allegiance to the flag. God bless the USA. They tell us that they really care. To them it's just a game. 'Cause we were all Americans before the hyphens came. People cared about who you were and less about your name. 'Cause we were all Americans before the hyphens came.
Folks, the reason we do that should be fairly obvious in a show about sanctuary cities and it's kissing cousin illegal immigration. I do remember the days before the hyphens came, and that's why that song rings so loud and true to me. So hopefully it will to the rest of you guys. You know, I was remiss when we started out and assumed that everybody knew what SAINT stood for. I need to get better about that. It stands for a sanctuary assembled in nature's tradition. And this initiative and this show is dedicated to sanctuary cities, but for the appropriate reason. The sanctuary city that you're a bit familiar with, and we're going to hear a soundbite here in a minute that we played on the first show, and we will probably repeat from time to time just to make sure that our new listeners are on the same page. The sanctuary city that you're familiar with and that's in the news and constantly being talked about is what we call a scallywag, which is a sanctuary city assembled lawless, looting yappers while aborting government. SCALLYWAG. And that does, scallywag does not have a very good connotation to it. You can look it up on Google. I won't dive into it, but we might touch on the region of the country a little later in the show where scallywag came from. But we offer a positive alternative, a saint city, which is a sanctuary assembled in nature's tradition. And as you probably know, if you don't, you should, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights basically codified what our founding fathers knew to be God-given rights. They don't come from the government, they come from God, and they're supposed to be protected by our laws. So, anyway, that's a little bit of the background on what we call a saint city. And when Alma was talking and when I was prepping for the show, it always bothers me that when we talk about sanctuary cities and we talk about illegal immigration and we talk about things that we often refer to this particular area as things as it cutting across party lines. In other words, Democrats and Republicans should all agree. So why don't they? I mean, they do not. The challenge is, and it's kind of in the Bible. I'm not a biblical scholar, but I did grow up reading it and know a bit about it and pay attention every once in a while. The Democrats, the liberals, the progressives have a tendency to over-empathize with the hardship of other human beings. And by that, I mean they take the passages in the Bible that have to do with, taking care of people and worrying about others and the big picture of mankind, and they pull upon your heartstrings in order to do that. On the other hand, the conservatives, the Republicans, did you get it?
Almost.
At least scared it away.
Yeah.
The Republicans or conservatives, on the other hand, are reminded of the story in the parable in the Bible about feed a man a fish, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, and teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. Mm-hmm. So, on the one hand, you have the folks that empathize with the fellow that's hungry, and you give him a fish. And on the other hand is the Republican approach to teach him to fish and feed him for a lifetime and be self-sustaining. So both angles are given there, and it depends on where you place your importance as to what you think the solution to the problem is. And I don't, that's not to say that one is right and one is wrong. I tend to take the teach a person to fish approach simply because it is longer lasting. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about sustainability and you talk about issues like that, that's what always comes to mind is going down that path. And so the people that want to teach people to fish are the ones that say this should cut across party lines. Our problem with sanctuary cities, our problem with illegal immigration should cut across party lines. So we've got a little 3-minute pitch from, and I've forgotten where it's from, but he'll tell you, I'm sure. But it's just a very solid approach to what is and what is not a sanctuary city in terms of today's vernacular. Ms. Surefire?
Before making a decision on what to do about so-called sanctuary cities, it's important to first understand what they are and what they aren't. Some people are under the impression that a sanctuary city is a place where local government resources are being used to not only actively block federal immigration enforcement, but also to actively harbor and protect people who've violated federal immigration laws. But this couldn't be further from the truth. There is no city and no state in the country with such a policy. None. However, there are dozens of cities and 2 full states with policies that have been labeled as sanctuaries. And here's what they do. In most of the cities, there are expressly written policies or ordinances to ban local law enforcement from arresting people for violations of federal immigration law. This is similar to banning state tax agents from investigating people for violating the U.S. federal tax code. Because federal immigration law falls under federal jurisdiction, a number of these cities have banned local law enforcement from even inquiring about the immigration status of a person they encounter, or informing federal agents of the possible presence of illegal aliens living in their communities. Additionally, 2 states, that's California and Connecticut, have sanctuary city-style laws on the books statewide. Known as the Transparency and Responsibility Using State Tools, or Trust Act, these laws ban the states from cooperating with or participating in a very narrow area of federal immigration enforcement. Under these state laws, if a person is arrested in the state and is due to be released for whatever they were being held for, they will not be held in custody beyond that time, even if the Federal Department of Homeland Security asks the state to hold them longer for possible immigration violations, which is something that DHS commonly does. More specifically, Trust Acts are addressing secure communities, a federal program that allows the DHS to access fingerprints taken by local police, to screen detained individuals for immigration status, and to request that local law enforcement agencies hold people for the federal government if they're found to be undocumented. However, what that federal program does not do is provide federal agents to deal with violations of federal law. The federal government, like it does for many federal programs, tries to get states to handle federal enforcement for them, and even foot the bill for it too. State trust acts and sanctuary city policies expose a serious flaw in federal immigration enforcement tactics and show significant power held by the states over this and other federal programs. As Hans Hermann Hoppe noted in his famous Mises Institute speech titled "What Must Be Done?" without local enforcement by compliant local authorities, the will of the central government is not much more than hot air.
Did you ever look at the stains in your coffee cup and then realize that's exactly what happens to your teeth? Paraswabs is the 5-minute solution to get your teeth white without visiting the dentist. This is John Greenhut, the CEO of Paraswabs. And if your teeth are stained from coffee, tea, or smoking, all it takes is 5 minutes with Paraswabs. In 5 minutes, you'll see an average of 2 shades whiter teeth, and in 7 days, 6 shades. It's clinically proven to whiten natural teeth as well as caps and veneers. The secret is a tooth detergent that was developed by Dr. Martin Ginniger that lifts stains off of your teeth. Best of all, there's no messy strips or trays that you have to leave in your mouth for an hour. Just swab your teeth for 5 minutes and you're done. To try Paraswabs risk-free, call 1-800-975-4583. That's 1-800-975-4583. I guarantee your bright white smile will have your friends talking about how great you look. Try it risk-free today. 1-800-975-4583. That's 1-800-975-4583.
Howdy, folks. Welcome back. Welcome aboard. You're listening to Saint Cities by Doc Owen Show. Glad you joined us. So, in the first part of the show, we talked about fishing in terms of giving a man a fish or teaching him to fish. And then we got a definition of sanctuary cities to try to help resolve why it doesn't cross party lines, why we have a difference between how this should be done between D's and R's. Sanctuary cities, I don't know this for a fact, but I would be willing to bet a nickel to a donut that 100% of the sanctuary cities in the United States have Democrat mayors. Here's why. The D's believe in giving a man a fish. And that's what sanctuary cities, as currently enacted, that's what they do. They help a brother out. And the R's, who teach a man to fish, claim that they are really just making people more dependent. So, remember, our definition, the current version of a sanctuary city is a scallywag. Sanctuary city as lawless, looting yappers while aborting government. And the aborting government in the tag came from the fact that they do not cooperate with the federal government in terms of identifying and deporting bad illegal immigrants. You know, illegal immigrants with a record. They just, the contention is, and they stand behind, I don't want to go too far down into this, you can listen to a previous show. They stand behind the National Police Union, Police Chiefs Union, that they won't get cooperation out of the local folks if they start turning people in for illegal immigration. I'm not sure that I buy that. Actually, I'm sure I don't buy that.
Yeah.
But I'm not a law enforcement officer, so it's difficult to argue it. Let's talk about some specific situations and potential solutions, and then maybe we'll lighten it up just a little bit for you. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania is a sanctuary city and has been having some very dire results and situations as a result of that. And as a result, there's a bill in the House of Representatives in Pennsylvania sponsored by Representative Martina White. And the bill would allow the city to be sued for personal injury or property damages caused by someone there illegally. Okay? The city should be held responsible, White believes, because Philadelphia is a sanctuary city that violates United States law by prohibiting cooperation with immigration and customs enforcement. Okay? And a lot of these police departments have actually written it into their policy and procedure manual that they will not ask for identification when they're making an arrest. So that's the current inaction. So Pennsylvania at the state level is trying to do something about one of their major cities. Philadelphia is probably the biggest city in Pennsylvania. So then there's a situation, and remember I talked about not just sanctuary cities, but illegal immigration being the kissing cousin. There's a small town in Georgia called Stone Mountain, Georgia, and it is just outside and named for a monument there on Stone Mountain. You got 3 Civil War heroes, Confederate generals, Stonewall Jackson, Robert E. Lee, and Jefferson Davis, are carved into the side of this giant piece of granite. So the South has its own Mount Rushmore. It's not far outside of Atlanta. All right? But it seems that Stone Mountain, Georgia, has resettled more Syrian refugees than New York City and Los Angeles combined. So it's a town of only 6,000 citizens in Stone Mountain, Georgia. All right? And yet they have taken in a total of 1,299 refugees from 1,300 refugees from all over the Middle East, 72 of which are Syrians. Okay? And that is greater than both in terms of Syria itself, that's greater than both New York City and L.A. combined. Very, very strange. Were Stonewall Jackson, Robert E. Lee, and Jefferson Davis alive today, circumstances might be a little bit different. We've got a rather humorous depiction of how those three generals might have reacted, or what happened in that area of the South in particular. So let's play this about the Confederate soldiers.
General Sherman was leaving Atlanta, 1865. After he burned it down, he was going out I-20. He gets on the Stone Mountain Freeway. He gets just outside of Stone Mountain, got 125,000 Yankee soldiers behind him. They're going by Stone Mountain. Suddenly they hear a voice. And they look up on top of Stone Mountain. There's one lone Confederate soldier standing on top of Stone Mountain, got his saber drawn. And he's talking real nasty to them, saying ugly things to the Yankees. And General Sherman calls a halt to his crowd, and he said, listen, we got to get this guy off here. It's bad public relations for us. Hell, we got CBS News with us, USA Today. Said, who's the toughest man in the outfit? They said, a fellow named Swartz from Minnesota is the toughest man we got. He said, send Swartz up there, get that Confederate off of there. Swartz goes to the top of Stone Mountain. He ain't there 5 minutes, he comes flying off the mountain. Hits and splats right in front of General Sherman. General Sherman said, send 10 men up there. And they send 10 Union soldiers to the top of Stone Mountain. Not a one lives to tell the story. General Sherman said, this is terrible, so we got to do something about this. He said, find the 150 finest men we got in this company and send them up there to get that rebel off the top of that mountain. 150 Union soldiers go to the top of Stone Mountain. Only one lives to tell the story. And he comes back off Stone Mountain, and he's bleeding from every port of his body. Don't look good at all. And he walks up to General Sherman. General Sherman said, son, what's the story up there? And the soldier said, it's a trick, General Sherman. There's two of them.
So if that attitude were still alive today, it might be challenging to have Stone Mountain, Georgia be the largest recipient of Syrian refugees in the United States of America. That's all I'm saying. A lot of pride down there. Let's talk about some sanctuary. Actually, there's some saint cities forming, and they're in the news. And they don't even. I'm doubting that they know about our initiative that we're just getting underway. There is a city that has become a sanctuary from bad policy, or at least a cry that the city should be a sanctuary from bad policy. In July, Ramon Aguirre Ochoa, an undocumented immigrant holed up in Philadelphia, was charged with raping a child. That alleged crime would not have occurred if Philadelphia police had notified federal immigration authorities when they had Aguirre Ochoa in custody prior to the alleged attack. The police, but Philadelphia is a so-called sanctuary city. It is written into police policy not to cooperate with federal immigration authorities, so they didn't turn him over. They turned him loose for whatever he'd been picked up for. So we need a sanctuary from bad policy is what the title of that article said.
Yeah.
Okay. However, here is a sanctuary, a call for a sanctuary city for Second Amendment rights is underway in Spokane Valley, Washington. Quite possibly going to become the first sanctuary city for gun owners. And it says, in light of the growing legislation country and statewide to ban more and more makes of guns, the proposal has been made that a city be erected as a safe haven for undocumented gun owners. much like other safe haven cities protect undocumented immigrants. So they're on the right track. Mm-hmm. They're on the right track. I would call not necessarily gun ownership as one of nature's traditions, but protecting yourself is certainly one of nature's traditions.
Yes.
And that's how you protect your freedom, et cetera, et cetera. Let's do one more before we take another little 1-minute commercial break. And two more little things. Right up the road is, from our headquarters in San Antonio, is a town by the name of Austin, Texas. That happens to be the state capital. And their city slogan is "Keep Austin Weird." So that should help explain something to you. But the sheriff in Travis County, which is where Austin is not running for re-election. And unfortunately, it looks like the lady that's going to take over, it's most likely to get elected, a Democrat. Even though Texas is very conservative and staunchly Republican on a statewide, nationwide basis, our primary metropolitan areas are run by Democrats, just like everywhere else in the country. Mm-hmm. That's a move the Democrats started making 50 years ago, was to get in the seats of power in the major metropolitan areas coast to coast, and they have been very successful at it. It was all part of their strategy, where they like to give away fish. So there is no standard definition for a sanctuary city, but ICE tracks local law enforcement agencies that have policies limiting cooperation. The majority of these still are in California. But the fellow that's pulling out up there in Travis County said, I will tell you and the person that's coming in after him has already stated she does not plan to cooperate with ICE. In other words, she's going to turn Austin into a bona fide sanctuary city. Mm. It is not now because of the gentleman who's in charge of the sheriff's department. Mm-hmm. All right? Just like us.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
In Bexar County. But, so he's warning against the fact that may happen. And just to give you a rather unique potential way around some of the issues in terms of illegal immigration, and then after the little break we take, that's where we'll focus less on sanctuary cities, more on illegal immigration, which, by the way, is what helps populate a sanctuary city. That's where they come from. All right. It seems that up in Dallas, Texas, which my favorite phrase about Dallas is that the only great claim to fame that Dallas has is it's real close to Texas. It's about a 45-minute drive any direction outside of Dallas. But this one is a good one. The city of Dallas, Texas passed an ordinance stating that if a driver is pulled over by law enforcement and is not able to provide a proof of insurance, the car is towed. To retrieve the car after being impounded, they must show proof of insurance to have the car released. This has made it easy for the city of Dallas to remove uninsured cars. Okay? Yeah. Which is a state law. You got to have automobile insurance. Mm-hmm. Shortly after the no insurance ordinance was passed, the Dallas impound lots began to fill up and were full after only 9 days. Over 80% of the impounded cars were driven by illegals. Now, not only must they provide proof of insurance to have their car released, they have to pay for the cost of the tow, a $350 fine, and $20 for every day after the car is kept in the lot. So guess what? Accident rates have gone down 47%, I'm sorry, and Dallas' solution gets uninsured drivers off the road without making them show proof of nationality.
There you go.
I think that's pretty clever.
Big D.
Yep. Let's take a little 1-minute break and we'll be right back.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 877-212-5898. Again, 877-212-5898. That's 877-212-5898. 877-212-5898.
Howdy, folks. Welcome back or welcome aboard. You are listening to Saint Cities by Doc Owen Show. We're glad you're here. If you missed the first two-thirds of the show, it's available on a podcast. So go out to our social media sites or download the app, or there are multiple ways to find it. It'll be on our Facebook. It'll be on both Saint Cities as well as Doc Owen Show. You can go to the DocOwenShow.com blog. You can download the Doc Owen Show app for either an iPhone or an Android and find it there. There's all sorts of ways to get a hold of that, to get a hold of the podcast, as they are called. And really all it is if you don't understand the theory of podcasting, it's like putting an 8-track tape into the deck and playing it back over and over again. Or something to that effect.
That's funny.
Let's talk about, we've been talking about sanctuary cities, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we are on a mission, creating an initiative to create saint cities, as the show is titled, which stands for Sanctuaries Assembled in Nature's Tradition. We're trying to change the meaning and understanding of a sanctuary city so that it's not all bad. They can be good. We need sanctuaries. Our cities need to be sanctuaries put together as the founding fathers intended, and protect our natural rights, our God-given rights. But in order to do that, we're going to have to turn around the trend. We're going to have to make people understand that there is a positive alternative to the current day definition of a sanctuary city. And that starts with getting a grip on immigration. Mm-hmm. And you'll see by some of these articles that is most likely not going to be easy to do. It's going to be relatively impossible to do with the current administration. And if we vote in the wrong administration to follow this one, it's only going to get worse. We have been promised by one of the candidates for president, one of the leading candidates for president in the two parties, that they are going to up the ante and increase the flow of refugees. And if I were a real refugee, I would be insulted by what they're calling refugees, because they're bastardizing the word to fit their own purposes. And to me, that's not a good thing. That's starting the whole process out with a lie. And I don't begrudge anybody wanting to come to America. This is the greatest country on earth. We have our problems, but it's still the greatest country on earth. So I don't blame anybody for wanting to come here. And we are a country of immigrants from a long time ago. But we did two things in the past that we're not doing today. We did it legally, and we totally assimilated. Mm-hmm. And when the country today, when the citizens among us that try to get, not all, nothing is about all and every and these absolute values, but there are a large number of immigrants who do not want to assimilate And when they don't want to assimilate, and we try to get them to assimilate, it's our fault. We're not doing as they would like us to do by trying to get them to accept our norms and our culture. So they put it back on us as Americans that we're not being hospitable. And that's exactly what's going on. And nothing could be further from the truth.
Yeah.
But it's just like, if you're going to come into my house, for as long as you're inside my house, you're going to live by my rules. End of discussion.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't like that, no problem. There's the door. The same way you came in, you can leave.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know any other way to put it. I don't think that's being ugly. It's not like the rules of the house in America are harsh. As a matter of fact, they're one heck of a lot more forgiving than the countries where these people are coming from.
Yep.
So why would you not want to understand our culture? Why would you not want to join us and assimilate? You came here for a reason. Mm-hmm. And if it was to better yourself, then you need to listen to us. If it was not to better yourself, then that's going to become real apparent. And if you're not assimilating, then that tells us you don't want to better yourself. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Military intelligence confirms that Muslim terrorists are entering the United States via Mexico.
Yep.
This show is broadcast from Texas. This article goes under what Texans would call the category of, well, duh. We've been telling them that for years. But they now admit it. The U.S. military intelligence report discloses that Muslim terrorists are being smuggled into the country through Mexico. The government calls them special interest aliens. And Latin American smuggling networks are helping them cross the border, according to information obtained from a U.S. Southern Command intelligence dispatch. You know, it's just the fact that they give them a special title of special interest aliens. They're covering.
Yep.
It's also talking about Haitian, Haiti, and Haiti people. Immigrants cross the border through Mexico and claim asylum for quick processing and entry. So everybody, and the problem is, as we've told you in the past, when you come across the Mexican border and you get caught by the Border Patrol, they track it that you're put in one of two categories. You're either Mexican or you're other than Mexican. Mm-hmm. And that's all there is to it. And other than Mexican is huge.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just a big old lump.
Yeah.
People, yeah.
And why do they do that? Because we've created a law that treats Mexicans differently. So all we have to worry about, not all we have to worry about, but all we can do anything about immediately are the folks from Mexico. Mm-hmm. We can deport them on the spot because that's the way the law is written. Mm-hmm. But anybody that falls into the other than Mexican category, we cannot deport immediately.
Right.
We have to give, and that's because of the generosity of the United States and the way we think about liberty and freedom for everyone. The reason our soldiers are around the world getting killed is to help create liberty and freedom for folks around the world in their home place. We're not out there to conquer the world. We're out there to show you what liberty and freedom is about and to try to beat back some bad people in your country so you can get some room to create your own liberty and freedom.
That's right.
Right. And at the same time, our current administration is rushing to admit 110,000 refugees by year's end. President Obama once pledged to admit 100,000 refugees from around the world into the country by the end of 2016. Recently, he has decided that number was simply not enough. So he's rushed the vetting process. And the majority of these new additions are coming from the Middle East nations. Hotbeds of terrorism.
Yeah.
Not that everybody coming in is a terrorist. But you darn well bet that some of them are. That's the problem. And you don't know who they are, how many of them there are.
Yeah.
That's right. Mm-hmm. In October, FBI, this is an article saying that FBI Director James Comey admitted during a House Committee on Homeland Security hearing that if someone has never made a ripple in the pond in Syria in a way that would get their identity or their interest reflected in our database, then we can query the database until the cows come home, but there will be nothing show up because we have no record of them. In other words, if they didn't, that's almost comical. And by the way, this is the same guy that suggested we not prosecute Hillary Clinton for her malfeasance. What he's saying is, if you are from Syria and you've not shown any anti-American tendencies while in Syria, then we're not going to know who you are. That's almost comical. So, anyway, they are upping the ante. There are people who connect the dots and say that they're just trying to bring in more voters. So, I guess we can expect Stone Mountain, Georgia, to go Democrat this year for the first time in a long time. But if you don't understand, we've had it on the show. We had a fellow explain it to us. By the name of Don, I can't think of his last name. But Barnett, thank you very much. Center for Immigration Studies. You knew where I was going. The way that immigration works, the numbers are put together by the administration. In other words, Obama and his administration say, this is how many immigrants we can take. Congress has no input into that. They like to know. They might, suggest, but basically it's done by the administration. They turn that number, which is currently 100,000, but they now upped it to 110,000. They turn that number over to the United Nations, and the United Nations says, okay, here's your 110,000 refugees. Here's their names. We've got them all queued up. They're living in tents over here in the Middle East, and we'll start lining them up and shipping them to you. It's exactly how it works. And they're supposedly vetted while they are in those camps, right? 18 to 24 months is what they say it takes to properly vet one of these refugees. In order to make their numbers, which is all important, they've reduced that to 90 days. They're now going to what they used to not be able to do in 24 months. They're now going to not be able to do it in 90 days. Forget about it. We're not going to have a clue who these people are until they act up and act out and tell us how wrong we are, that we don't know what we're doing, that our country is all messed up, and if we just listen to them and live by Sharia law, we'd all be happy. That's their plan. Yep. So there's the part about the vetting. And that's not just coming from the FBI. It's also coming from the Department of Homeland Security. It talks about the ease of committing refugee fraud. All right. And very recently, DHS, Department of Homeland Security, the federal government, granted citizenship accidentally to 858 immigrants. They found that 858 immigrants to the United States who had pending orders of deportation were actually granted citizenship in the last several years. So they they were supposed to be deported, and apparently somebody in Department of Homeland Security looked at it upside down or checked the wrong box or didn't know what they were doing. Despite these people hailing from countries identified with national security concerns and or identified with high rates of immigration fraud, the audit found that in every case, the immigrant used either a false birthday or a fake name when applying and wasn't caught because of government databases were lacking their fingerprints.
It only gets worse, folks.
Yep. Oh, the article goes on to say that DHS also admitted to naturalizing 950 other people who had orders of deportation. Despite many of these same people actually having fingerprints on file. The Inspector General said fingerprints are lacking on as many as 315,000 cases of immigrants with deportation orders or those who are classified as fugitives. Holy guacamole. So we got 315,000 cases of immigrants with deportation orders, and we have no way of identifying them. So since we can't do that, let's just make them citizens.
Just make it easier, right?
Yeah, that's easy on the government.
Sure.
At least we got them off the books. Right?
There's some big white out there.
Unfortunately, there are people who think that way.
I believe it.
In a position of power.
Yep.
Currently, there's a backlog of files for the Immigration and Customs Enforcement to review of more than 148,000 cases. Unbelievable. No wonder the other presidential candidate is all over this as a primary problem. Donald Trump started his campaign raising Cain about illegal immigration, and he continues to.
Yeah.
I think I'm beginning to understand why. I mean, it was being from Texas. It was gut instinct that he was correct, but you didn't know how well it was going to play nationwide. It's playing pretty strong nationwide, and the more you read about this stuff that's going on, the more you know why it's playing nationwide. I mean, who would have thought that Philadelphia, way up yonder from the Texas border, was a primary sanctuary city having problems with their sanctuary occupants? You know, without and I got news for you. Without the internet, you wouldn't know about it because it's not in the mainstream media. It might be on local TV up there in Philadelphia, but that's a big might. It might not even make the local news.
That's true. Nobody would ever know.
Yeah, so this talks about. Well, let's sum up. You can either give a man a fish, or you can teach a man to fish. One side is the D's approach, to feed him, empathize with him, feel sorry for him. Here, have something to eat. The other side is the Republican approach, saying, I know you've fallen on hard times, but let me help you out and show you how to fish, so this will never happen to you again. Sanctuary cities are built around give a man a fish. You want to bring them in, protect them, take care of them, and let them live off of the dole for the rest of their lives. That's not how this works. And Saint Cities is here to offer an alternative. Front row. Time to go. You have been listening to the Doc Owen Show. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. Now go out there this week and take care, pay attention, and God bless.
Bye-bye, folks. God bless.